Hey folks, welcome back. We are discussing moral foundations theory. If you want to hear more about what we've discussed so far, I would encourage you to look at part 1 of this video, but let's get back into it. Moral foundations theory is an idea that there are 6 building blocks of individual morality: care, fairness, loyalty, authority, sanctity, liberty. Each of these foundations is based upon some legitimate concern, and each of those foundations makes an enormous impact upon how we see the world. Let's go ahead and discuss how this impacts our society. Right now, I would say that the United States has a very sick brand of politics. But there's the hope that we can get past this. We understand that because everybody has each of these 6 moral foundations, there's a lot of common ground there. Unfortunately, we prioritize things differently, as we'll see in a moment here. And the media is not doing us any favors by vilifying, demonizing, and dehumanizing each other. This really destroys our ability to collaborate and solve our problems, and it even impacts our ability to properly see each other. In 2012, Graham, Nozick, and Haidt came up with a paper comparing basically liberal and conservative mindsets. And from there emerged a libertarian analysis as well. What they found was this: liberals and conservatives each exaggerate both their own as well as the other side's level of ideological extremity for both groups. So liberals see themselves as being more liberal than they really are, and they see conservatives as more conservative than they really are, and the same thing for conservatives. Additionally, generally liberals are making larger mistakes in how they perceive themselves and others than are conservatives. My guess is that that could be because a lot of liberal ideas are often conveyed through media, academia, pop culture, and therefore conservatives are less able to escape from these ideas, and therefore they are more familiar with them if they want to be. Moving forward, we actually can compare, using this paper, the differences in how people see the world. We're comparing the typical United States liberal, the U.S. conservative, and the libertarian. What we find by these diagrams is that the liberal mindset and worldview is dominated by the care and fairness moral foundations. They also care about liberty to a lesser extent, but mostly in terms of personal liberty rather than economic liberty. And they have very little attention to loyalty, sanctity, or authority. Moving over to the conservative moral foundation, they have a bit more complexity to their moral opinions, because they have elements of each of the 6 moral foundations in roughly same proportion to each other. So they're able to see things that maybe the liberal can't, such as these more structural elements of loyalty, sanctity, and authority. The libertarian is different because the libertarian is almost uniform in its appreciation of the liberty moral foundation. To a lesser extent, the care and fairness moral foundations, but liberty dominates this. And similar to the liberal, the libertarian has little time for loyalty, sanctity, or authority. So there's some ways that they're similar, and there's some ways that they're different, and this adds a possibility for collaboration going forward. This chart describes that each of the different groups is not in itself a monolith. We look at this and we see that we on this side of the diagram here is the secular left and the secular right. I'm putting the libertarians as right-leaning, economically conservative side there. And on the right side, we have the socially conservative, more traditional or religious sides of each party. So each both the liberals and the conservatives have secular and traditional wings of their various parties. And this helps a lot when you try and talk about communication and collaboration. I'll give you an example. We can see the libertarians and the liberals have similar shape of how they prioritize their moral foundations. That being said, the libertarians score about a point lower in terms of how they see fairness and care. But let's just say that the social conservatives want to talk to the secular liberals. If they use the libertarians as a mediator, it will be helpful to them because the libertarians are going to be putting together persuasive arguments centered on the care and fairness foundations, whereas and therefore not talk about those of less concern of loyalty, authority, and sanctity. Similarly, if the secular liberals wish to speak to the social conservatives, they will be wise to talk to the religious left because they can see the value of the loyalty, authority, and sanctity moral foundations in roughly the same proportion as the social conservatives. So both these two guys in the middle here can really help the guys on the wings to build persuasive arguments and build coalitions to get behind policies. So let's talk about some recommendations. Liberals, first of all, I love you. Compassion and equality, totally noble goals, very pro-social, wonderful ways to help make the world a better place. I would caution you that many of you on your side have a blind spot for the loyalty, the authority, and the sanctity foundations. And you may not agree with those at all. However, they are there, and they have some legitimacy. And I know a number of, I know several individuals who have totally derided and condemned these different foundations. And those people who do that come off as self-righteous, and really it's not doing you any favors, because what you're doing is you're alienating a lot of individuals. So the question is, do you care more about being right, or do you care about being effective? Because if you really want to try and solve the problems that you see, because you caring about people and being fair to people, by basically shouting down and just being not treating fairly the people with other opinions, you're not going to be effective in trying to make policy address the concerns that you have. Basically what you do is, by deriding these other foundations, you condemn others for what they believe are their virtues. And you'll never get people to support you if you attack their character like that. Conservatives, I love you. You appreciate those structural elements of loyalty, authority, sanctity that provide the glue of civilization, keeping it from falling apart. That's great. Keep in mind, though, that some of that glue is either illegitimate or is harmful to individuals of certain groups, mostly. So let's do what we can to focus on maintaining the pro-social, the legitimate glue, and let's allow that illegitimate or that harmful glue to ebb away. It'll make a better society for all of us. Also, by statistics, conservatives are generally less inclined to embrace new ideas, so let's allow our ideas to grow as our understanding does. Science is advancing by the day. Our ability to understand problems is growing every day. Let's not be totally reliant upon ideas from yesteryear, but let's go ahead and view those ideas with new information and new ways of looking at the world. And you'll be surprised how enriching that can be. And I know a lot of you already understand that, and I don't want to condescend to that. So let's keep that right. Finally, keeping boundaries between tribes permeable. We understand that we are tribal people, so let's do our best to make those boundaries between tribes allow people to quickly and easily go to and fro between those groups, and that will allow us to not cut ourselves off from each other. Looking at the Olympics is a great example of how this works. A pro-social way of competing and being tribal. We compete by nation, but we do so in a wonderful way where we're all competitors, all under the same banner, all trying to do the same thing, and doing it in the joy of competition as opposed to anything antisocial. So let's try and go for that brand of tribalism as opposed to the more antisocial methods of tribalism. Finally, libertarians. I love you guys. You are the most rational, clear-thinking individuals amongst all these groups. You do not, you're not as easily swayed by emotional messaging. And that's great. It allows you to be logical and rational. But since you don't have that, don't have those receptors quite as well firing as everybody else, you can come off as a bit more emotionally distant or deficient or just more callous in how you see things. I know you wouldn't argue with this, but this is how you're perceived, and that's important at least to understand. Remember that logic and reason, although persuasive to you, probably will not convince other people very easily. We usually persuade people through the heart rather than the head. So I encourage you to find more creative or emotionally engaging ways to bring forth your messages, and hopefully they'll be more accepted. Finally, because you're less emotionally invested, you're more objective, you have a unique position to bring people together. I would encourage you to try that as well. Finally, folks, life is short. Let's find ways to work together, solve our problems, get along. There's a lot of common ground out there. Be excellent to each other, as Bill and Ted used to say. Go ahead and be peaceful, and I hope we'll see you in the next video. Take care.